It's a typical weekday at the Cozy Corner Cafe. Sunlight streams through the large windows, falling on the tables and floor. The scent of freshly ground coffee mingles with the aroma of vanilla and freshly baked goods. The air is filled with the sounds of quiet conversation, the clinking of cups, and the sound of jazz in the background. Chenille stands behind the counter, wiping it down with a clean rag. She's wearing her standard uniform, a white blouse and a black apron. Her well-groomed hair is pulled back into a neat bun. She's a beautiful, athletic girl with kind eyes. Her shift is almost over, and she's already thinking about going home and getting some rest. She notices two patrons at a far table, a man and a small boy. The man, dressed entirely in black, sits with his back to the counter, barely visible. The boy, about 6 years old, sits opposite, staring intently at Chenille. He whispers something to his father, who simply nods, still glued to his tablet. Chenille smiles at the boy. He has a very serious face for his age. Black hair, large dark eyes. He looks at her without looking away. She thinks he's just curious. Or maybe he wants more juice. A few minutes pass. The man gets up and goes to the restroom, leaving the boy alone at the table. Then the boy stands up. He carefully slides off the chair, straightens his shirt, and slowly but confidently walks straight to the counter where Chenille is standing. He stops in front of her. She can barely see him beyond the high counter, only his eyes and part of his face. He looks up at her, very intently, as if studying her. "Hello," he says clearly and politely. His voice is clear, but not childishly serious. "Hey, sunshine," Chenille replies, leaning toward him. "Do you need anything? More juice? Maybe a cookie?" The boy shakes his head. No, thank you. I need to ask something. Very important." Chenille's smile widens. "Children are so funny sometimes." "Of course. Ask, I'm listening." The boy takes a deep breath, as if gathering strength. He folds his hands behind his back and straightens up to his full, small height. "You are very beautiful," he says, "and kind. I saw you smile." "Oh, thank you, darling," Chenille says, feeling warmth spreading inside her. "And you do a good job. My cup was always full." Chenille nods, waiting for him to continue. Perhaps he wants to say thank you? But the boy continues with the same incredible seriousness. "I've thought it all through," he declares. "I'm 6 years old. I'm a big boy now, and I want to propose to you." Chenille nearly choked on her saliva. She looked at him, not understanding. "What's the offer, baby?" The boy takes another breath, his eyes shining with determination. "Marry me!" For a second, the sound in the cafe seems to freeze. Chenille can only hear the beating of her heart. She looks at this small man with his huge, serious eyes. This is not a joke. He's not laughing. He's waiting for an answer. A real answer. She places the cloth on the counter and slowly squats down to be level with him. Now she can see every detail of his face, the perfectly smooth skin, the long eyelashes, the tightly pressed lips. You want me to be your wife?" Chenille asks quietly, trying to comprehend the situation. He nods decisively. "Yes. You are the most beautiful girl I have ever seen, and you understand me. You poured me juice without ice, just like I asked. Dad often forgets, but you remembered the first time." Chenille remembers. Yes, he asked for juice without ice. She thought he was an unusual child. Most children, on the contrary, ask for more ice. She looks at him. It's not a playful proposal, like children sometimes do. This is something real, something hard-won. There's not a shred of doubt in his gaze. He's waiting. He proposed to her, as best he could, at the age of 6. Chenille's mind is racing. It's funny. It's sweet. It's incredibly touching. She sees the boy looking at her hopefully. He's so serious that she even feels a little uneasy. What if she just laughs? She might offend him. He's clearly not joking. She understands that the boy's father will be back soon. She must somehow find a way to gracefully resolve this awkward situation. The child needs to be supported, but gently explained that this doesn't happen. The best way is to turn it all into a game, a kind, sweet joke that won't hurt his feelings. She smiles at him with her warmest, most radiant smile, the one she rarely shows at work. "Taemin, right?" she asks, remembering the name her father called him when he ordered. He nods, his eyes lighting up as she remembers his name. "Taemin," Chenille says softly. "This is the sweetest offer anyone has ever made to me. It's very important." He listens without moving. "And you know what?" she continues, playing on the same level with him. "I agree." She says it in a cheerful, slightly fairy tale tone, the tone one uses when saying, "Of course you'll be an astronaut," or "Yes, we'll definitely buy you a pony." She thinks he'll understand right away. He'll understand that it's a game. That it's just her way of saying, "Thank you, you're a charming boy." She expects him to laugh, to blush with embarrassment, maybe run to his dad, or just say, "Okay," and run off to play. But none of this happens. Taemin doesn't laugh. He doesn't blush. His serious expression doesn't change one iota. On the contrary, it becomes even more focused. He looks at her like a general accepting the enemy's surrender, like a man who has just made a very profitable deal. He nods slowly, once, clearly and matter-of-factly. "Okay," he says in his clear, ringing voice. "I'm glad." Then he turns and starts walking back to his table. His steps are as slow and confident as when he approached. He doesn't run, doesn't jump. He simply walks, thinking about something. Chanel freezes in her crouch, watching his straight back. Her smile slowly fades. "What just happened?" he said. "Okay. I'm glad." Like a business meeting. There was humor in her tone, but nothing in his response. She rises slowly, holding onto the edge of the counter. It feels like the floor beneath her feet has shifted slightly. Taemin approaches his table. His father has already returned and is looking at his tablet again. The boy pulls up his chair, sits down, and leans toward his father. He starts talking, very animatedly. Chanel stands behind the counter, feeling a shiver run down her spine. She sees Taemin gesturing with his small hands. He's clearly retelling their entire conversation. She sees him pointing in her direction. Her heart starts beating faster. It was just a joke, a sweet, harmless prank on the baby. She wanted to make him happy, to make his day a little magical. She didn't think he'd take it at face value. And now he's telling his father everything. What will this man think? That she, a waitress, seriously agreed to marry his 6-year-old son? It sounds inappropriate. It sounds strange at best. And at worst, very unprofessional and even creepy. She feels awkward, bitterly awkward, hot. She grabs the same rag and begins furiously scrubbing the now clean counter, just to avoid looking in that direction. But her gaze returns to that table. Taemin's father listens. He doesn't interrupt his son. He simply listens, looking at his tablet. Then he slowly puts the tablet aside. He raises his head and looks directly at Chanel. Their gazes meet across the entire space of the cafe. Chanel sees him for the first time. Before, he was just a client in black. Now she can discern details. He's young, very young for a father of such a child. He can't be more than 30. His black hair is perfectly styled, as if sprayed, not a single hair out of place. He wears a dark shirt, unbuttoned a couple of buttons. Dark lines of tattoos are visible under the collar. They run up his neck and behind his ears. Patterns on his hands are also visible. He's large, with broad shoulders, like a man who spends a lot of time in the gym. But it's not brute strength, but rather a powerful, focused athleticism. But what strikes her most are his eyes. Dark, almost black, and completely expressionless. No anger, no surprise, no mockery, not even interest. It's the look of a man accustomed to being in control, who assesses the situation, the assets, and the risks in a split second. He looks at her as if she were an interesting, but as yet incomprehensible object. That look paralyzes Chanel. She can't look away. She feels like a schoolgirl caught in a prank by the principal. Her palms become clammy. She wants to go over and explain everything. Say, "Sorry, it was a joke. I didn't mean to." But her feet are rooted to the floor. He stares at her for a few more languid seconds. Then his gaze shifts to the man sitting at the next table. This man, also in a business suit, had been quietly sipping coffee and reading the newspaper this entire time. Chanel hadn't even noticed him. The man, Taemin's father, nods slightly in Chanel's direction. The man at the next table immediately puts down his newspaper, stands up, and walks toward her. A man approaches the counter. He is polite, dressed in an expensive but understated suit. His face expresses polite neutrality. "Good afternoon," he says in a quiet, calm voice. "Sorry to disturb you." Chanel just nods, unable to speak. One thought is pounding in her head. "I'm going to get fired now. I'll be kicked out of the cafe for harassment of a minor, molestation of a minor, or something like that." "Mr. Jinho asks for a few minutes," the man continues. He gestures slightly toward the table. "Please don't worry about work. We've already spoken with your manager. He has no objections." Chanel looks behind him and sees her boss, the cafe manager, standing at the entrance to the back room, staring at her with wide eyes. He nods quickly, confirming the stranger's words, and gestures, as if to say, Go ahead, go ahead. The situation is completely out of control. She's no longer a waitress in her cafe. She's someone invited somewhere by more powerful people. The request, made by the assistant, was so polite that there wasn't even a hint of refusal. Chenille slowly emerges from behind the counter. Her legs are weak. She takes off her apron and places it on a chair, doing it automatically. Then she walks across the room. She feels the other customers' eyes on her. She passes tables, and it feels like the walk takes forever. She approaches the table. Taemin looks at her with a triumphant and slightly mysterious expression, and his father, Jinho, leans back in his chair. He looks at her with the same inscrutable gaze. His hands, with their thin, graceful fingers and dark tattoos, rest on the table. He doesn't say, "Sit." He simply waits. Chenille stops at the table. She feels the blood rush to her face. Politeness and professional habit prevail over panic. She gives a slight, almost imperceptible bow, as is customary at this cafe with all guests. "Good afternoon," she says, her voice a little higher than usual. She's in a hurry, the words flying out like a machine gun. "I beg your pardon. It was a huge misunderstanding. Your son, Taemin, he proposed to me. It was so sweet and unexpected. I was just joking back. I wanted to make him happy, to support him. I never meant to mislead him or create an awkward situation. This is entirely my fault. Please accept my deepest apologies." She speaks, barely holding her breath, staring into the space between Jinho and his son. She's terrified to meet his eyes. Her insides clench. She waits for him to say something harsh, or just stand up silently and leave, giving her an icy glare, or call the manager and demand her dismissal. She's ready for anything. Jinho is silent. He doesn't move. He looks at her. His dark eyes study her face, her fingers clasped between white knuckles, her tense posture. The silence lasts for a few seconds, which feels like hours to Chenille. Then he slowly looks away from her and toward his son. Taemin sits up straight, looking back and forth between his father and Chenille. Like a spectator at a watch. Interesting performance. Then Jinho looks at Chenille again. His lips, thin and pressed together, barely move. "Have you agreed?" he asks. His voice is low, calm, and without intonation. He pronounces the words clearly, as if asking about an important point of the agreement. The question takes Chenille by surprise. She expected anger, reproach, but not this cold clarification. Yes, but," she stutters. "It was a joke. I said, I agree, but in that tone. You know, like you say to children, so as not to offend." "You said the word agree," Jinho states, not as a question but as a fact. In response to a direct offer, he doesn't accuse. He simply establishes a sequence of events, and this makes Chenille even more uneasy. She feels as if her words are being caught in some invisible trap. "Yes, but the context," she begins, but is interrupted by a loud child's voice. "She can't marry me, Dad," Taemin says, sounding as logical as if he were discussing an obvious math problem. "I don't have the money. I don't have the money for a ring. I don't have the money for a wedding. I don't have the money for a big house." He turns to Chenille and explains to her like an adult. "I'm only 6. I don't work. I only have pocket money for ice cream." Then he looks at his father again and makes a wide gesture towards Jinho. "But Dad has money. A lot of money. He can buy everything. So he'll marry you instead of me. It's the right thing to do. I'm handing you over to him." Taemin nods, satisfied with his decision. He looks as if he's just brilliantly resolved a difficult dilemma. He passes Chenille, like someone passing a baton or an awkward burden. Taemin's words hang in the air. Chenille freezes, her brain refusing to process the information. She slowly moves her gaze from the boy's serious face to his father's impassive one, and back again. "He will marry you instead of me." These words sound so absurd, so unreal, that she feels a strange sensation. It's as if she's fallen into some alternate reality where the logic of a 6-year-old, reinforced by an adult's money, becomes law. She doesn't know how to react. Laugh? Cry? Turn around and leave? Say no? But how can she say no to such a proposal that wasn't even seriously voiced? It was voiced by a child. She looks at Jinho, expecting him to intervene. He'll say to his son, "Taemin, that's rude," or "We can't talk to people like that," or he'll just laugh, finally removing that icy mask. But Jinho doesn't say anything. He looks at his son. His face remains expressionless. No surprise, no indignation, no embarrassment. He simply listens. as if Taman hadn't just voiced a crazy idea, but simply reported the weather forecast. Then his gaze slowly, very slowly, slides back to Chanel. He studies her. He sees her wide eyes, her mouth slightly open, the utter confusion on her face. He sees her trying to find some kind of footing in this absurd situation. The silence at the table becomes echoing, unbearable. Chanel hears a timer ringing somewhere in the kitchen and the laughter of people by the window. But here, in this small circle of space around their table, a heavy, oppressive silence reigns. She can't stand it anymore. She needs to leave. Now. I need to get back to work, she mutters, taking a step back, her voice shaking. Jinho doesn't try to stop her. He only tilts his head slightly, a barely perceptible nod. Permission to retreat. Chanel practically runs behind the counter. Her hands are shaking. She grabs the counter to stay on her feet. Her heart is pounding somewhere in her throat. She sees the manager, still standing by the back room, looking at her with undisguised curiosity and a hint of fear. She takes a deep breath, then another. She approaches him. "Andre," she says, trying to keep her voice even. I don't feel well. My head is spinning. Can I finish my shift early? I'll work those hours another day." Andre looks at her, then glances at that ill-fated table. He sees the man and the boy getting ready. The assistant is already paying the bill at the register. "Yes, of course, Chanel, he quickly agrees. "Go ahead, get some rest." "Nothing terrible happened there?" No. She shakes her head too quickly. "Just awkwardness. Childish prank. I'll be leaving now." She doesn't go into the back room to get her things. She simply takes off her badge, grabs her small bag from under the counter, where the staff keep their personal belongings, and practically runs toward the service exit at the back of the cafe. She needs some fresh air, now. The chill autumn air hits her face as she steps into the narrow alley behind the cafe. It's lined with dumpsters and parking spaces for workers. She leans her back against the cool brick wall, closes her eyes, and breathes deeply. What was that? What the hell was that? Thumps in her temples. She decides to go around the building and onto the main street to catch a bus. She needs a distraction to forget this ridiculous incident. She turns the corner and steps out onto the sidewalk in front of the cafe and freezes. Right in front of the cafe's entrance, in a no parking zone, stands a long black car. It's not flashy, but its clean lines and immaculate paintwork convey a quiet, confident power and value. Two people are standing near the back door of the car, Jinho and Taemin. The boy is already wearing a light coat and holding his father's hand. Jinho stands with one hand in his pants pocket and the other holding Taemin. He looks at the entrance to the cafe as if waiting for something. No, he's waiting specifically for her. He knew she'd come out this way. Their gazes meet again. Chanel feels the desire to simply disappear, warring with numbness. Jinho doesn't take a single step toward her. He simply waits for her to cross the few meters separating her from them. Chanel realizes there's no escape now. She approaches slowly. Her legs feel heavy, as if they were filled with lead. Taemin smiles at her, his rare but very sincere smile. "We've been waiting for you," he says. Chanel looks at Jinho. He looks at her with the same impenetrable gaze. "We need to discuss the situation," he says. His voice is still quiet and even. There is no threat in it, but there is no request either. It is a statement of fact. The situation requires discussion, and he intends to do it now. I've already apologized," Chanel tries to say. "There's nothing more to discuss. It was a stupid joke on my part. Please forget it." Jinho shakes his head, once from left to right, slowly. "No. This situation has gone beyond a simple joke," he says. "My son took your words seriously. For him, this is now a matter requiring a decision. His logic has its merits." He looks at Taemin for a second, then back at Chanel. "I think it's best if we talk calmly and find a way to explain everything to him properly, without any hard feelings. My car is here. We can take you home and talk on the way." The offer sounds polite, but there's an unspoken thought in the air. Or we can talk right here on the street, but that will take longer. And Chanel, looking into his calm, expressionless eyes, understands that he won't leave until he gets what he wants. And what he wants is to discuss the situation, quickly and efficiently, as he probably does everything in his life. She's trapped by her own ill-considered joke and the ironclad logic of a 6-year-old boy. Chanel nods slowly. She doesn't want to get in this car, but the thought of continuing this conversation here, on the sidewalk, seems even more unbearable. Maybe in the car she'll just say it's all absurd, they'll understand, and she'll finally be able to go home. She climbs into the back seat. The leather is soft and cool. The interior smells of cleanliness and expensive leather. Jinho sits down next to Taemin on the opposite side. The driver, the same assistant, pulls away smoothly. The car moves almost silently. Taemin nodded after just a couple of minutes. His eyelids drooped. He whispered, "Are we going home, Dad?" And receiving a short yes, snuggled into his father's arms and fell asleep almost instantly. A long day, a lot of emotion. That's enough for a 6-year-old. Silence falls. Deep, echoing. Chanel looks out the window at the flickering city lights. She waits for Jinho to speak, for him to say, "So my son?" or, "You must understand," but he remains silent. She glances at him cautiously. He sits with his head leaned back against the headrest, staring straight ahead. His profile is sharp, sculpted. The tattoos on his neck seem even darker in the dim light of the car. He doesn't look at her. He doesn't look at his son. He just drives. As if it's an ordinary evening, this silence unnerves Chanel more than any conversation. She wants to break it, but she doesn't know where to start. She clasps her hands in her lap and decides to remain silent too. Let him speak first. After all, he was the one who wanted to discuss. The car leaves the center, passes ordinary residential areas, and begins to climb into a more prestigious area, where houses are located further apart from each other, and the crowns of large trees are visible behind high fences. The car slows and smoothly approaches the massive wrought iron gates. They slide silently aside. The car enters a long, perfectly level driveway, lit by dim streetlights, and then Chanel sees the house. This isn't just a big house, it's a building, modern, made of glass and dark stone, with clean geometric lines. Huge panoramic windows glow with a soft, warm light, revealing the interiors. It looks like one of those pictures from an architectural magazine, the kind you'd never imagine being someone's home. Jinho's sighed. He carefully picks up the sleeping man, so as not to wake him. Tamina. The boy only moans something in his sleep and wraps his arms around his father's neck. Jinho turns to Chanel, still sitting in the car. "Come in," he says. It's not a request. It's the next part of a plan that exists only in his head. Chanel steps out. The cold air hits her face again, but now it smells of pine and clean air. She looks at the house museum, then at Jinho with the baby in his arms. She doesn't move. "I thought we'd just talk on the way," she says quietly. "Or you could take me home." "We'll talk inside," he replies. "Taemin should be sleeping in his own bed, and you need to understand the context." He turns and walks toward the massive glass door, which slides open in front of him. Chanel stands there, feeling completely out of place in this immaculate space. But to leave now, on foot, from somewhere in this gated community, it's impossible. She takes a deep breath and follows him inside. Inside, she can't find the words. High ceilings, spaciousness, minimalism. Everything is very expensive, very high quality, and yet empty, like a showroom of expensive furniture. There is not a single superfluous thing, not a single knickknack. Only artful lighting emphasizes the lines and materials. Jinho hands over the sleeping man. Tamina looks at a woman in formal attire who appears out of nowhere. A nanny or housekeeper. She nods silently and carries the boy deeper into the house. Only now does Jinho turn to Chanel. He stands in the middle of the vast living room, the sheer size of the space only accentuating his commanding, composed figure. "My name is Han Jinho," he says calmly. "I am the CEO of Han Industries." The name means nothing to Chanel, but the tone in which it's spoken, and everything that surrounds her, speak for themselves. This isn't just a rich person. This is someone from another universe, a universe where decisions are made with a nod, and words carry the weight of contracts. He makes a slight gesture with his hand, as if representing not a house, but an entire empire. "What you see is the result of my work, and my responsibility, including responsibility for Taemin. His world is very fragile right now." He's not saying this to brag. He's simply providing information, context, as he promised. Jinho continues, and for the first time, something other than neutral appears in his voice. Something flat, rehearsed, as if he's pronouncing a diagnosis. Ever since then, he's been withdrawn. He hardly smiles. He doesn't play with the other children. Today, he smiled at you, and he talked more than he has in the last month. Chanel listens, and the pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place. The boy's seriousness, his strange, adult logic, his attempt to arrange everything himself in his own way. Jinho walks over to a large, low table and picks up a thin tablet. He scrolls through something, not looking at Chenille. I'm offering you a contract, he says bluntly. Temporary. You will play the role of a significant adult in Taemin's life, the role he himself offered you, a fiancé, and then his father's fiancé, formally. Now he looks up at her. His eyes are still impenetrable. It will be just a role. For the outside world and first and foremost for him, you will not need to do anything except spend time with him. Be kind. Answer his questions. Smile. Everything else, your personal life, your work, will remain inviolable. For each meeting with him, you will receive an agreed-upon sum, a significant sum. Chenille stares at him, disbelieving her ears. Her lips part to speak, but no sound comes out. Are you serious? She finally breathes out. This is madness. You're asking me to pretend to be your fiancé? Out of a childish fantasy? I'm offering therapy for my son in the form he's chosen and accepted. Jinho corrects her. His voice becomes completely even again. His mental health and adjustment are more important to me than convention. He trusts you. He made you an offer, and you accepted. In his worldview, this created a connection. I propose we use this connection for good. That's a lie, Chenille says louder. You want to build his happiness on a lie. No, Jinho shakes his head. I want to give him support so he can feel again. And then, when he's stronger, we'll explain everything together, gently. But for now, it'll be a game. A game for which you'll be well paid. He places the tablet on the table and turns to face her. Here are the terms. You meet with Taemin 3 times a week. Walks, games, reading. In my presence or under the supervision of security. No physical contact beyond the bounds of propriety is required. To the outside world, you are my companion, with whom I am in the early stages of a relationship. This will help protect me from unnecessary, pressured business alliances. You receive a fixed monthly salary, 5 times your current waitress salary, a separate bonus for each public outing role. The contract is for 6 months with the possibility of renewal. All your clothing and accessories for events will be provided by me. At the end of the contract, you will receive a large final payment and a letter of recommendation to the educational institution of your choice. He lays out all the points as if he were reading out a technical specification. No emotion, just facts, benefits, and guarantees. The words, 5 times your salary, and a letter of recommendation for any educational institution stick in Chenille's head. She's studying part-time to become a designer. Tuition is expensive. She's exhausted, working double shifts. She hasn't saved up for next semester yet. Her mother helps as much as she can, but it's hard for her. Her thoughts are racing. Is it humiliating? Yes. Is it strange? Incredible. Is it dangerous? Possibly. But he says it so calmly, so matter-of-factly, as if he were hiring an actor for a role, and paying her more for the role than she could earn in a year. And then there was Taemin, his serious eyes, the way he said, I'm handing you over to him. A boy who lost his mother and is trying to fix the world on his own by finding his dad a wife and himself. Who? A friend? A surrogate mother? What if I refuse? She asks quietly. Jinho shrugs, a barely perceptible movement. Then you'll refuse. I'll find another way to help my son, and you'll go back to your life. But, he pauses slightly, Taemin will wait. He'll ask about you, and he'll be hurt again. He'd already started to open up, and then, disappointment. He's not making a threat. He's simply describing a likely course of events. And that makes his words even more powerful. From the next room comes the quiet voice of the nanny tucking Taemin into bed. Chenille looks over. She imagines this small, overly serious boy in this huge, empty, perfect box. He has all the toys in the world, but lacks the simplest thing. Silly, sincere play with an adult who simply wants to please him, not therapy. She looks at Jinho, at this rock-like figure who tries to buy his son's happiness the way he buys new technology for his business. Wrong, creepy, but there's a monstrous logic to his method. She needs the money. She really needs it. She feels sorry for the boy. And she's afraid of this man, this situation. But giving up now doesn't seem like a way out, just an escape. What if he's right? What if this game really can help? I can't sign the contract now, she says, her voice hoarse. It's too... I don't believe it. Jinho nods, as if he'd been expecting this. A trial period, he offers. 1 week, 3 meetings with Taemin. No contract. You come, spend time with him as a guest. We'll see his reaction. And yours. No obligations. After a week, you make your final decision. And for this trial week, you'll get paid as a full one. He offers money again, simply as a means of solving everyday problems. And there's a cynical meaning to this. Chanel closes her eyes. This whole day feels like a dream in which she joked with a boy, and now stands in a house museum, negotiating the terms of the deal to pretend to be his bride. She opens her eyes. She's tired. She's confused. But the thought of simply dropping everything and walking away, leaving this strange boy with his even stranger father, somehow doesn't occur. 1 week, she says quietly. Just meetings with Taemin. And no public roles for now. Agreed, Jinho answers instantly. For the first time, something other than dispassion appears on his face. Something like satisfaction at the preliminary agreement. A car will pick you up tomorrow at 6 o'clock. The next morning, at 9 o'clock, Chanel stands outside her modest home. She barely slept, pondering the previous night. It hadn't been an easy decision, and now she's doubting its wisdom. She's expecting the car at 6 o'clock, as arranged, for her first meeting with Taemin. But at 9 a.m., it wasn't the evening black sedan that pulled up to the curb. It was another car, slightly smaller, but just as silent and austere. The same female assistant Chanel had first seen in the cafe stepped out. "Good morning," the woman says, with a polite but not warm smile. "My name is Mina. Mr. Han has entrusted me with organizing your day. Please come in." "Organize?" Chanel asks, not moving. "We agreed on 6 o'clock, to meet with Taemin." "Exactly," Mina nods. "The meeting will take place, but we need to prepare beforehand. That's part of the conditions. Please, it won't take too long." Chanel hesitates, but gets into the car. She thinks perhaps this is some kind of instruction about house rules. The car takes her not to Jinho's house, but to a nondescript building in the business district. Inside is a quiet, luxurious beauty salon. There are no other clients there. She is greeted by a team, a stylist, a makeup artist, a manicurist. Everyone is very polite and professional. "Do I just need to freshen up?" Chanel asks Mina as she's seated in a chair. "Yes, of course," Mina answers, scrolling through her tablet. The procedures take several hours. Everything is done with precision and care, yet very quickly and decisively. Chanel feels like she's undergoing a medical examination. She's offered haircut and makeup options, but when she tries to choose something simple and familiar, the stylist gently but firmly says, "For your face type and the lifestyle you're expecting, Mr. Khan has approved this look," and she points to the sketch. It's not terrible. It's even very beautiful, but it's not hers. After the salon, she's taken not to a regular store, but to a quiet boutique, also devoid of other customers. The hangers are already lined with items, dresses, pantsuits, blouses, all in subdued, expensive tones, perfectly cut. "You can try it on," Mina says. Chanel, already tired of the unquestioning flow of favors, hopefully picks up a simple dark blue wool dress. It looks more modest than the others. "It's a wonderful choice for evening events," the sales assistant nods approvingly. "But for today's afternoon meeting, Mr. Han suggested this," and she hands Chanel a set, cream silk trousers, and a thin cashmere jumper in a delicate sand shade. The clothes are soft, incredibly pleasant to the touch, but they look as if they bear an invisible sign that says, "Fragile, do not stain." "What if I want to wear jeans and a sweater?" Chanel asks, almost whispering. "We'll be playing with the baby. He might spill something, get dirty." Taemin's playroom is kept spotlessly clean. "Please try them on." She's not allowed to choose for herself. She's offered approved options. Chanel realizes that the trial period has already begun, with a complete loss of control over her appearance. She puts on the provided outfit. The clothes fit her perfectly, as if they were tailored to her measurements. She looks at her reflection in the mirror. She looks different, rich, stylish, alien. Her usual curled hair now falls in perfectly smooth waves. The makeup accentuates her features, but makes her look older, more reserved. They won't give her her old clothes. Mina carefully folds them into a bag and says everything will be delivered to her home, clean and ironed. Jinho's house. Chanel is silent. She looks out the window and feels empty. They dressed her like a doll. They combed her hair like a doll. And now they're taking her away to play a role. She's not angry yet. She simply feels like an object, a thing being prepared for use. "Mina," sitting next to her, senses her mood. Mr. Han is very attentive to detail, she says, as if explaining. It's important for Taemin to see stability and a certain level. You're part of this world now, even if temporarily. Your appearance should reflect that. This will reduce the child's anxiety. Chanel doesn't answer. The explanation sounds logical, but it doesn't make it any easier. It's as if her own self has been locked in a closet along with her old jeans. The car pulls through the gate. Chanel no longer looks at the house in amazement. She feels only a heaviness in her chest. Taemin's playroom. It's more lively, shelves filled with books and toys, a large rug, a begging mouth with paints. But everything is also perfectly arranged and clean. Taemin is already there. He's sitting on the carpet, assembling a complex construction set. He's wearing small pants and a shirt, looking like a miniature version of his father in his business attire. When Chanel enters, he raises his head. His eyes widen. He stares at her unwaveringly. Then he slowly stands up. A look of genuine, living amazement, mingled with admiration, appears on his usually serious face. You look like a princess, he says quietly. Jinho emerges from behind the door, apparently leading to the office. He must have been watching or waiting. He looks at Chanel, and something strange is happening here. His icy, controlled gaze shifts for a second, just a split second. His eyes, always so impenetrable, seem to widen for a moment. Something sharp flashes in them. Surprise? Something else? He looks at her, at this version of Chanel created by his stylists, but still based on her. He sees her large, makeup-enhanced eyes, her styled hair, the expensive, simple clothes that fit her athletic figure just the way he probably intended. This look lasts a moment, less than a moment. Then he blinks, and everything disappears. His face becomes a smooth, impassive mask again. He nods, a businesslike nod. You're just in time. Taemin was waiting for you. But that moment of confusion, that tiny crack in his armor, doesn't escape Chanel. She's seen it. And it's even more disconcerting than all the morning's preparation. The meeting with Taemin was going surprisingly well. As soon as she sat down on the carpet next to him and asked about the construction set, his concentrated seriousness melted a little. He began explaining what he was building. He didn't smile broadly, but his eyes brightened. He asked her questions, the usual childish questions. An hour later, he even allowed himself to laugh when their construction set tower collapsed. Jinho didn't interfere. He sat in a chair by the window with a tablet, but Chanel felt him watching. Not as a father, but as a scientist recording changes in a test subject's behavior. 2 hours later, Mina gently reminded them that time was up. Taemin frowned, but didn't protest. He simply asked, "Will you come again?" Chanel, looking into his expectant eyes, nodded. "Yes, of course." As she left the playroom, Jinho followed her out, leaving the door ajar. "Thank you," he said curtly. It sounded sincere, but still stiff. His reaction was positive. "Same time tomorrow?" She nodded without looking at him, still feeling embarrassed by that fleeting glance. Mina drove her back. Near the house, Chanel reached for her old bag of things, but Mina didn't hand it over right away. "Mr. Han asked me to tell you," she said, "that as an advance for today, and as a sign of goodwill, he has transferred a certain amount to your mother's account, to ease financial concerns and allow you to focus on Taemin." Chanel freezes. "What amount? To my mother's account? How did he even find out her details?" Mina shrugs slightly, as if it goes without saying. Mr. Han always ensures the reliability of his partners. The amount is equivalent to 3 months' pay under the contract. He called it a gift, so as not to burden you with formalities during the trial period. The blood rushes to Chanel's face. All the confusion, exhaustion, and sense of loss of control instantly transform into pure, cold rage. Did he spy on my family? He sent someone to my mother, without my permission, and wired her money? Her voice trembled with anger. Mina looks slightly taken aback by this reaction. It's a standard screening procedure, and a way to demonstrate your seriousness. Your mother, as I understand it, didn't refuse. "It doesn't matter!" Chanel almost screams. She snatches her bag from Mina's hands. "Take me back, now!" To him. She doesn't remember getting into the car. Rage burns brightly within her. All this, the salons, the boutiques, the surveillance, was just a prelude. He crossed the line. He interfered with her life, with her family's life, without asking. She bursts into the house, passing the surprised assistant at the entrance. Mina, following behind, says something into the phone in a quiet, anxious voice. Chanel doesn't know where his office is, but follows the voices. She opens the first door where she hears his low voice. It's an office. Huge, with a glass wall. Jinho is standing by the window, talking on the phone. He sees her, and his eyebrows rise slightly. He quickly ends the call. "Have you forgotten something?" he asks, putting the phone down. "What have you allowed yourself to do?" Chanel blurts out, approaching his desk. Her hands are clenched into fists. "Who gave you the right to transfer money to my mother? Who gave you permission to test her? Do you think you can just buy everything? My clothes, my time, and now my family?" Jinho looks at her angry face, her blazing eyes. He doesn't back down or get angry in response. He looks genuinely puzzled, like a man who took what he considers a logical and beneficial step, and now he's being scolded for it. "I've eliminated a potential source of stress for you," he says calmly. "Financial issues often interfere with our focus on what's important. I know you're studying. Your mother is struggling financially. I've solved that problem. Now you don't have to worry about it during your trial period." "Without my consent!" she screams. "You didn't ask. You just did it. As if we weren't people, but assets in your portfolio. You had no right to interfere in our affairs." Jinho slowly walks around the table and sits on its edge, crossing his arms. He looks at her searchingly. "I wasn't meddling," he corrects. "I provided financial support, an advance. It's common practice to help a partner feel secure and free from distractions. Your mother was pleased. She said it would help with your tuition." "Is that bad?" "It's not about the money," she gasps, helpless. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand at all. "The thing is, you did it without me. Don't you see the difference? You control everything. My clothes, my appearance, and now my family finances. I'm not your employee. I didn't even sign your stupid contract. I agreed to a trial week to help the boy, not to be owned by you." He's silent for a few seconds, processing her words. His face remains inscrutable, but there's some kind of internal work going on in his eyes. "I'm not striving to own," he says finally, choosing his words carefully. "I'm striving for efficiency, for clarity. I saw the problem. I solved it. In the most direct and effective way. I thought it would be convenient for everyone. For you, for your mother. I didn't take into account that the very fact of making a decision without discussion would provoke such an emotional reaction." He says this as if he's discovered a technical error in the calculations, a human error he'd overlooked. There's no apology in his tone. There's a recognition of the miscalculation. A heavy silence fell over the office after the explosion. Jinho watched in silence as Chanel, still shaking with anger, turned and walked out, slamming the door. Mina walked her to her car in stony silence. That evening, Chanel received a terse message on her phone. "Meeting tomorrow at 4 p.m. Just you and Taemin. Your choice of clothes, Jinho." The next day, she showed up wearing her jeans and a simple sweater. No one commented on her. Taemin didn't seem to notice the difference. He was focused on something else. After an hour of playing with model cars, he suddenly took her hand. "Come on, I'll show you my secret garden." He led her through the side door of the house into a small, well-kept courtyard. It was quiet here, smelling of earth and autumn leaves. A young apple tree grew in the middle of the neat lawn. Its branches were still thin, but some were laden with bright red fruit. Taemin led her to the tree and placed his hand on its trunk. "This is Mom's tree," he said very quietly, not looking at Chanel. "Daddy and I planted it. When she flew away to heaven, Dad said she has roots here now. And when the tree blooms, it's her smiling at us." Chanel freezes. All her anger at her father disappears, replaced by a sharp, aching tenderness for this boy. She gently places her hand on his shoulder. "This is the most beautiful tree I've ever seen," she says sincerely. "And the most beautiful apples." Taemin finally looks up at her. There's an unshed tear in his eyes. "Dad almost never comes here," he whispers. "He says he's busy, but I think he's just hurt." At that moment, they hear a slight crunch of gravel underfoot from behind. They both turn around. Jinho stands in the doorway. He's frozen in place. His gaze is fixed not on them, but on the tree. On Chanel's hand on her son's shoulder. On Taemin's face, frozen with unwanted emotion. Jinho himself looks as if he's stumbled upon something he's long avoided. He's wearing a casual black suit, but his tie is loosened, and in his hand, he's clutching not a tablet, but a crumpled piece of paper. The silence in the garden seems especially loud. Even the birds aren't chirping. Jinho looks at his son by the tree. He sees how Taemin doesn't pull away from Chanel. but instead presses himself slightly against her arm. He sees trust in the boy's posture, and something in his own, always impeccably composed world begins to crack. His face, it's usually so stony, momentarily contorts into something very alive and very tired. Pain? Longing? He presses his lips together, and the muscles in his jaw tense. He looks at the tree planted in memory of the wife he apparently never let go of. He looks at the woman he hired to play the part, and now she stands here, in the very heart of his pain, holding his son's shoulder with such simple, genuine tenderness. He looks away, not to the side, but at the ground. He takes a deep, almost noisy breath. When he looks up again, the mask is almost back in place, but not completely. A deep weariness remains in his gaze, a chink in the armor through which, for a moment, a mere man, not a decision-making machine, can be seen. "Taemin," he says, his voice a little hoarse. He clears his throat. "Your nanny is calling you. It's time for homework." Taemin nods without objection. He glances one last time at the tree, then at Chanel. "See you tomorrow?" he asks. "See you tomorrow," she smiles. The boy walks away, passing his father without looking at him. Jinho lets him pass and remains in the garden with Chanel. He silently looks at the tree, as if not noticing her. He doesn't show this tree to everyone," Jinho finally says, still looking at the apple tree. "Only to the nanny. And now to you." He turns to face her. His face is under control again, but his eyes still betray the storm within him. "Thank you," he says. One word, but it carries more meaning than all his previous thank yous combined. He's not thanking her for the game. He's thanking her for being here, in this moment, for his son. Then, without waiting for an answer, he turns and leaves, leaving Chanel alone in the garden with the whisper of the autumn wind in the leaves of his wife's tree. The trial week is coming to an end. Chanel still hasn't signed the contract. Something inside her resists, but she continues to visit Taemin, and he clearly looks forward to these meetings. One day, as they finish painting, a guest arrives. Mina appears at the door of the playroom, a slight look of alarm on her face. "Miss Chanel, Mr. Han asks you to come down to the living room. He has business partners arriving. He believes your presence would be appropriate." Chanel feels her stomach clench, a public role, something she so wanted to avoid, but she remembers Jinho's gaze in the garden, and nods. Besides Jinho, there are two other people in the living room, an elderly, dignified man in an impeccable suit, and a young, very beautiful girl. The girl looks at Jinho with undisguised interest. "Ah, here's our guest," Jinho says, introducing Chanel. His voice is smooth and businesslike again. "This is Chanel, Taemin's friend. Chanel, this is Mr. Park, my longtime partner, and his daughter, Ari." They exchange polite bows. Mr. Park looks appraisingly at Chanel, then back at Jinho. His gaze says, "Is that all?" The conversation turns to business, to new contracts. Mr. Park deftly weaves comments about his daughter into the business discussion. "Ari just returned from Europe. She received an excellent education. It's so hard to find young people with such a broad outlook these days, isn't it, Jinho? Especially a woman who understands the weight of responsibility of major family affairs." "Absolutely," Jinho replies neutrally. "Yes, Dad," Ari chimes in sweetly. "But I always say the most important thing in business is strong connections, connections cemented not only by contracts, but also by personal trust. And trust, as we know, is best built between families." Her gaze glides over Jinho, then casts a quick, haughty glance at Chanel in her simple jeans. The implication is crystal clear. Mr. Park isn't just proposing a deal, he's proposing a dynastic marriage. Chanel sits, trying to maintain a polite, neutral expression. She has to play the part, just a family friend, but inside, she feels a chill. She sees Ari looking at Jinho, how he listens politely, nodding, but his eyes remain cold and distant. He doesn't play along, but he doesn't openly reject her either. And then Chanel catches herself with a strange feeling, a sharp, burning spark that pierces her chest when Ari laughs and lightly touches Jinho's hand, making some comment. Is this jealousy? But that's absurd shit. He's nothing to her. An employer, a strange, controlling, unbearable person. And this situation is just part of their strange arrangement. But the feeling doesn't go away. She sees this beautiful, confident girl from Jinho's world offering him exactly what he logically wants, a profitable alliance, a woman of the same social class. And Chanel suddenly feels the gulf between them. She's a temporary nanny, a friend, a hired actress, And Ari is a real candidate. And the calm and cool way Jinho takes it all hurts even more, as if he's simply considering another business proposal. Jinho catches Chanel's gaze. He sees something in her eyes. Confusion, perhaps discomfort. He frowns slightly. Then suddenly, he turns to her and says, interrupting Mr. Park's monologue, Chanel, have you forgotten that we're taking Taemin to that new park today? He's been waiting for us for a long time. He calls her you for the first time, publicly, and he talks about their plans together, as if they were something that goes without saying. It's a light but clear statement of priorities. Not business dinners, but a trip to the park with their son, and she's part of these plans. Mr. Park and Ari fall silent, sensing the change in the atmosphere. Ari looks at Chanel with a new, more intense interest, no longer arrogant, but calculating. Taemin slips out from behind the door. His face is focused and serious. He's clearly been standing behind the door, listening to everything. He approaches Chanel and, without a shadow of a doubt, climbs into her lap, wrapping his arms around her neck. The gesture is so natural and trusting that it momentarily takes all the adult's breath away. Mr. Park smiles, trying to regain control of the situation. Oh, what a wonderful boy. He's so attached to his friend. But you know, Jinho, it's important for a child to have a complete family, motherly care, to have brothers and sisters, real ones. Taemin turns his head and looks directly at Mr. Park with his large, dark eyes. I'm going to have a little brother or sister soon, he declares loudly and clearly. The living room is deathly silent. Even the background hum of the ventilation system seems deafening. Chanel feels her legs go numb beneath the boy. Her own mind refuses to comprehend what she's heard. She looks at Jinho. He sits, completely still. His perfect control has failed this time. He looks at his son, and on his face, slowly, as if in slow motion, there appears not emotion, but a complete lack of it, a shock so profound that he can't even hide it. Mr. Park turns pale. Ari looks from Taemin to Chanel to Jinho, her beautiful face contorted in disgust and disappointment. What did he say? Mr. Park breathes out quietly. Taemin, pleased with the effect he'd produced, repeats, now addressing Ari as the main threat. Chanel's expecting a child, my brother or sister, so Dad will marry her, and she'll stay with us forever, and she won't need any other aunts. He says this with such childish, unshakable confidence that it's impossible not to believe his words. He simply stated a fact that he apparently considered the logical conclusion to the Daddy is getting married instead of me story. If Daddy is getting married, then of course there should be children. And he, Taemin, decided to speed up the process and make his new family impenetrable to outsiders. Deception for the greater good, as he understood it. Chanel sits, unable to move, her cheeks flushed and her head empty. Jinho remains silent, but his gaze, fixed on his son's face, is now so stormy that it's scary to imagine what will happen when he comes to. The dead silence in the living room lasts an eternity. Mr. Park is the first to recover. His face goes from pale to crimson, with suppressed rage. He stands up abruptly. It seems we've caught you at a delicate moment, he says in an icy tone, full of disdain. Congratulations on the new addition, Jinho. I hope your new family obligations won't interfere with our contracts. Ari, let's go. Ari stands up, casting one last glance at Jinho, now filled with only cold disappointment and disgust. She doesn't look at Chanel at all, as if she doesn't exist. They leave. The door closes behind them with a soft but final click. The living room is quiet again. Only Jinho's heavy breathing breaks the silence. He's still sitting in the chair, but he feels like he's about to explode. His fingers are gripping the armrests so tightly that his knuckles are white. Taemin, sensing the icy atmosphere, slides off Chanel's lap. He stands between her and his father, looking at Jinho. There's no fear in his eyes, only a question. Did I do the right thing? Did I protect our family? Taemin, Jinho says. His voice is low, raspy, unlike his usual even tone. Go to your room, now. But Dad! In the room! A roar suddenly erupts from Jinho's chest. He doesn't scream loudly. He screams in a strangled voice, with such a ferocious, controlled rage that it's more terrifying than any scream. He leaps from his chair. His face is distorted with anger, that icy mask shattered, revealing something primal and terrifying beneath. How dare you! How could you say such a thing? Taemin's whole body trembles. His bottom lip starts to tremble. He's never seen his father like this. Never! He backs away, bumping into Chanel. Chanel instinctively hugs him, holding him close. Her own shock begins to give way to a defensive reaction. He's a child. He doesn't understand, she says, looking at Jinho. It was a mistake. Jinho turns his anger on her. His eyes burn with a black fire. And you? Where were you? What were you doing? You should have been in control. You should have stopped him. He takes a step towards them. I hired you to help, not to create such nightmarish scenes. What do you think will happen now? Park will break the deals. He'll use this rumor against me. And all because of what? Because of your oversight and his stupid fantasies, which you only encouraged. His words strike like whips. Chenille feels the injustice take her breath away. My oversight? Her voice rises too. You created this game yourself. You told him you'd marry me. You dragged him into this absurdity. He simply developed it logically in his own way. And now you're taking it out on him, as if he'd strategically screwed up your deal. He needs to know his limits, Jinho growls. No sin, istes. No longer listening to her. He needs to understand what's okay to say and what's not. And you've been causing chaos from the very beginning. With your jokes, your emotionality, your influence. I thought you could provide stability, but you only make things worse. The word influence, spoken with such disdain, is the last straw. Chenille releases Taemin, who is now quietly crying against her leg. She stands up, face to face with Jinho. Her own fury, cold and precise, displaces all fear. My influence? She says quietly, but each word is cut like a bullet. I gave your son a few hours of normal human interaction. I listened to him. And what did you do? You bought him toys and hired an actress to pretend to be a family member. Do you think you can control your feelings the way you control your finances? You are wrong, and your son just proved it to you brilliantly. He was not wrong. He lied. Yes, but he lied because he wants a family. A real one. And you offer him a surrogate for money. And when that surrogate starts to crack, you blame me. She sees her words hitting home. She sees something other than anger flicker in his eyes. A shock, a pain. But right now, she doesn't care. The contract isn't signed. The trial week is over, she declares, turning away from him. I'm leaving, and I'm not coming back. The game's over, Mr. Han. You'll have to bear the consequences. She takes the hand of the crying man, Tamina. Come on, I'll take you to the nanny. She leads him to the door, not glancing back at Jinho, who stands frozen in the middle of the living room, as if paralyzed. The boy's eyes reflect horror and complete incomprehension as to why this is happening. After handing Taemin over to the worried nanny, Chenille goes up to the playroom. She brought almost nothing of her own, just a few hairpins and a drawing book. She gathers these pitiful things into her usual bag. Her hands are shaking, but inside there's an icy emptiness. It's over. This strange, painful experiment has ended in disaster, just as she, deep down, expected. She didn't have to call a car. She simply left the house and walked down the long driveway to the gate. She walked quickly, almost running, without looking back at the glass palace. She needed to get as far away as possible. The air was cold, but she barely felt it. Jinho stands in the living room. The anger has vanished as suddenly as it came, leaving behind an icy, sickening void. He hears Taemin's quiet, intermittent sobs from above, the sound filtering through the thick walls. He slowly sinks into the chair. His gaze falls on the perfect carpet, on the emptiness around him. He sees a picture before his eyes, Taemin on Chenille's lap, her hand on his shoulder by the tree. Her eyes, full of anger and truth. Do you think you can control your feelings the way you control your finances? His own words echo in his head. Your influence. You bring chaos. Chaos? Yes. She brought chaos. Chaos of feelings, chaos of unpredictability, chaos in which his son came to life, started talking, started smiling, pointed to a tree, and what did he do? He yelled at him for wanting this woman to stay too much, for believing in the fairy tale he, Jinho, started with his contract. He looks up at the deserted, immaculate living room. It's always been like this, quiet, sterile, like his life after losing his wife. He filled it with work, deals, control, and Taemin with toys, nannies, rules. He thought it was safer that way, that he could avoid the pain. But the pain came, and it wasn't Chenille who brought it. He brought it himself, with his attempt to buy happiness the way one buys a favor. And when this favor got out of hand, he lashed out at the one who was the most vulnerable and the most sincere in this game, his own son. A loud, inconsolable cry comes from above. Taemin isn't just sobbing, he's sobbing. The nanny mutters something quietly, but but the crying doesn't subside. Jinho stands up. His legs carry him upstairs. He stops at the door to his son's room. Through the door, he hears, "She won't come again. I ruined everything. Dad sent her away. I'm bad." Jinho closes his eyes. A huge, heavy wave of shame and realization washes over him. He hadn't miscalculated. He had allowed a catastrophe to happen. He was afraid. Afraid of losing control, afraid of other people's eyes, afraid of this living, genuine woman who, in just a few days, had shown him the emptiness of his perfectly constructed world. And instead of dealing with it, he had kicked her out and broken something in his child. Again, he pushes the door. Taemin sits on the bed, his face buried in the pillow. The nanny stands nearby, confused. Jinho says quietly. The nanny leaves, closing the door behind her. Jinho approaches the bed. He sits on the edge, his movements awkward, alien. He places a hand on his son's shaking back. "Taemin," he says, his voice strange, broken. "I'm the bad one, not you. I yelled at you. It was wrong. I'm sorry." Taemin doesn't respond, his crying only briefly fading to quiet sobs. Jinho sits there, stroking his son's back, looking out the window at the darkening garden where the apple tree stands. He realizes he's just lost something important. Not the deal with Park, something far more valuable, an opportunity. An opportunity that came in the form of a waitress with kind eyes, who joked with his son and wasn't afraid to tell him, Jinho, the truth to his face. And he kicked her out. But the contract isn't signed. So formally, it's all over. But the feeling seething inside him isn't relief. It's despair, the same as his sobbing sons. He understands he has to do something, not as a CEO, as a father, as a man who has just realized the depth of his mistake. But what? How can he fix what he broke when he himself is the main cause of it? Taemin's cries gradually fade into sleepy hiccups, and for the first time in years, he feels completely powerless and completely wrong. And this feeling is far more terrible than any business failure. Jinho sits in the darkness for a long time. Even when Taemin falls asleep, tired from crying, he doesn't leave. The silence now seems loud and accusing. He looks at his son's sleeping face, smoothed by sleep but still wet with tears. These tears are his doing. He stands up carefully so as not to wake the boy, and goes out into the hallway. The house, always so immaculate and silent, now seems to him like a gigantic, empty prison. He goes down to the living room. His gaze falls on the spot where Chenille sat an hour ago, where she looked at him with cold anger and disappointment. Her words ring in his ears again and again. "Do you think you can control your feelings?" He tried, and lost, because feelings don't obey the logic of contracts. He approaches the huge window. It's dark outside. Where is she now? Did she make it home? She left on foot. The thought of her walking alone along the dark road from his house fills him with a strange, unfamiliar feeling. Anxiety, not for her reputation, not for the consequences, but simply for her. He turns and sees Chenille's forgotten drawing book on the table. It fell out of her bag while she was packing. He slowly approaches and picks it up. It's a simple, childish notebook. He opens it. On the first pages are Taemin's sketches. He's concentrating on building a tower. He's looking at a tree, his profile as he reads. The drawings are imperfect, but alive. There's warmth in them. On the last page, a fresh drawing, apparently sketched today. The three of them, sketchy but recognizable. A large rectangle, Dad, a small rectangle, Taemin, and a circle with a smile, Chenille, in the middle. They're holding hands. Underneath the drawing, in childish block letters, is written, "My family." Jinho clutches the notebook so tightly the spine cracks. His chest tightens. This simple, childish drawing brings down the last vestiges of his defenses. His contract, his role, his effectiveness, all of it crumbles to dust before this single piece of paper. He'd made a terrible mistake. He hadn't just hired the wrong actress. He'd alienated the only person in the last 2 years who had managed to reach his son. And, as he now realizes with horror, perhaps even himself, he looks at the notebook, then at the dark garden outside the window, where the apple tree stands. Should he run after her now? No. This would be another impulse, another attempt to gain control. She would throw him out, and she would be right. But something had to be done. Not tomorrow, now, from this minute. First, for his son. Then he had to find a way to fix what he'd broken. Not as a businessman, as a person, who, it seemed, was only now beginning to wake up from his slumber.